What's going on, fellow freelancers? It's Top Ranking Noob, and I'm back at it again with another helpful video for Anthem. So we got a new day and a new set of daily challenges that we need to knock out. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to be using the Divine Vengeance in order to help me get through these dailies. So let's take a quick look at this weapon. It's pretty cool. So the Divine Vengeance, it's a upgraded Warden, so it's got a 4-shot burst. And every third shot that you hit from a weak point is going to cause an explosion. And that explosion does AoE damage. So if you find a couple of enemies that are hugging up on each other, go ahead and hit a weak point. You're going to damage both of those guys, or all of them if they're well grouped together. The range on that AoE is not very high, but you often find enemies kind of hurled together, so it's not too hard to do AoE damage with this guy. It does 323 base damage, which isn't all that much, but I believe that's per shot, and it's a 4-round burst, so that's pretty impressive. 600 rounds per minute. It has an ammo capacity of 36 with a pretty good range of 45. That's the same range of some of the sniper rifles. For my inscriptions, they're not too impressive, but I do have 100% ammo on this particular weapon, which is pretty cool. That means I shouldn't have to worry about running out of ammo too much. But hey, before I forget, if you guys are interested in other MMOs much like this, and you know I am, make sure you head on over to U4GM. They got a lot of cool items for a lot of different games, including Fallout 76, Fortnite, whatnot. I'm going to be putting their link down in the description along with the coupon code that's going to be saving us 5%. With all that being said, let's see if we can test out this weapon by completing our daily challenges. It's what, February 28th? We got a new set of challenges. It's going to want us to knock out at least 2 contracts. We need to get the Elite award, or the Elite Master, which just kills elites. We need to do a Legendary contract. We need to kill some enemies with melee. And then we need to do 1 Stronghold and 1 Tyrant Mine. Now, a lot of these we're going to be able to knock out all in one shot, like the Legendary contracts count as the regular contracts. So I'll do 2 Legendary contracts, and within those I'll probably get my Elite kills as well as my melee kills. So with those 2 contracts, I should knock out at least 4 of those items, and then we can just do Tyrant Mines to knock out the last 2. So most of the challenges today are pretty straightforward. We need to kill some of these elite enemies, and if you're playing on Grandmaster 1 with these legendary contracts, those guys are really easy to come by. You know, and I'm shooting them with this Divine Vengeance in their heads usually, because that's the weak spot for a lot of the enemies. As long as they're grouped together, it's going to do some awesome AoE damage. Now in this case, I'm also doing a lot of melee attacks because one of my daily challenges is to get that melee master at least 3 times, and I should be able to knock that out like right now. So that was pretty easy. I think that was actually the Elite challenge. Nonetheless, we should be able to knock out the melee pretty quickly as well. Just like that. So I already knocked out both the Elite Daily Challenge as well as the Melee Challenge right in the first encounter of this first Legendary contract. So that makes it nice and easy. I don't have to worry about that anymore. We can put more focus towards using this weapon, the Divine Vengeance. Now, like I said, this has got a 4-round burst to it, and every third round that you hit a weak spot with is going to cause an explosive damage. Fire explosive. And it's a pretty impressive attribute for this gun, because you can see the enemies near him taking damage in this case, and the radius on that AoE damage is pretty good. It also helps take down shields. Now, fire element's not the best for taking down shields, but since it's already in the gun anyways, and you're doing it with, if you're hitting the weak points, you should be hitting the weak points with just about every burst. It adds up to quite a bit of damage. This gun isn't the highest damage or the highest DPS in game, but with that AoE aspect, it's still pretty sweet. I would say this is probably my favorite main weapon of all of them. It's just really fun to use. One of the downsides to this weapon, though, is you have so much explosions going on, especially with the larger enemies, that there's a lot going on screen, like a lot of elements, especially since you got your other players also doing some damage. So there's just like a lot of flare going on, and it can get a little confusing. Sometimes it gets hard to hit the weak points if you have so much going on as far as graphics at one time. So the goal here is to keep an eye out. That's kind of a waste of an ultimate. Everything died. Timed that wrong. Oh well, we'll do an overkill on this dog here. The best situation to look out for when you're using this weapon is for just the enemies to group up close together. So look for these choke points like in this situation. It also pairs well with that freeze grenade, or the ability to freeze them. You can just see I'm doing massive AoE damage here. I'm not bringing down any one enemy in record speed, but as a group, I'm just tearing them up as far as DPS goes. So that's a prime situation for this weapon if you're using it. This guy actually works out pretty well for some of the bosses as well here. I'm trying to take out a couple of large enemies here. To include this, what do you call him, an enforcer, and there's a, what is it, a luminari, the giant tank with legs. And because they have such large weak points on them, I mean, it makes it really easy to trigger that explosive damage that this weapon has to offer. In this case, for this tank, we just aim for the legs. And what I noticed is the legs are armored when you first, when it first spawns in, so it doesn't look like you're getting the crits, but it still counts as a weak point, so it still triggers the explosive. So as long as you're getting the weak point, it'll trigger the explosive, even if you're not getting the crits because of armor or whatnot. Either way, like you can see, I love this weapon. It's so much fun. Not the highest DPS, but the only thing I dislike about it is the excessive cinematics. All the flame coming up, and then you got the lightning damage from the enforcer. It makes it really hard to see what's going on half the time. And by enforcer, I mean storm. I don't know why I said enforcer. Either way, I knocked out all the dailies aside from the stronghold and the tyrant mines. Tyrant mine is a stronghold, so we're just going to knock that out of the way and we'll be done with our daily challenges. Today was pretty simple. Maybe it's just the weapons that make it easy. Of course, strongholds are also pretty easy if you got two Colossus on your team. The enemies spend more time shooting at them than they do shooting at me, which I'm fine with. Gives me more opportunity to hit these weak points, especially on the turrets. And so this is another prime example of why I like this weapon. I mean, you got the turrets. This goes really well, like I said, with the frost grenade. You freeze the turrets, you get an angle on their weak point, you can really just tear them up. But of course, it also helps to reduce the shields as well, like I said. So I'm just tearing through these enemies, not at record speeds, but man, with these Colossus here, man, nobody's shooting at me. It just gives me all the opportunity to hit those weak points. Now with these Colossus in the group, I got two of them, like I said. It's progressing a little slower, but nobody's shooting at me. I got the freeze grenade, or the frost grenade, and I'm literally just chilling. Like, I'm in Grandmaster 1, nobody's shooting at me. I'm not dodging or anything too much, but yet I can just stand here and blast everybody. So I do like having some Colossus in the group. Usually just one, because, you know, we want the DPS as well. And if you got the good enough Colossus, some of those Colossus can pump out quite a bit of DPS. Not in this case, though. Nonetheless, we're not wiping, so it's not a big deal. And I'm having fun just taking advantage of the weak points of these enemies with this Divine Vengeance. I'm loving this weapon, man. I think this is going to be my favorite in-game. Nonetheless, even though these Colossus aren't really doing a whole lot of damage, they did an excellent job on crowd control when it came to the ads on the final boss. Most of these guys never made it out of the cave, so massive kudos to them. This weapon really comes in handy with this boss. I mean, this boss is it's got such large weak points that I'm hitting that explosive trigger. I'm triggering that explosive damage every single 3-round burst, which is awesome. So again, I'm not doing the most amount of damage. This isn't necessarily as good as like a Devastator, per se, with an Interceptor hand and a Devastator, but for a Ranger, this is probably my favorite weapon for sure. The boss is super simple, especially if you got some Colossus that know how to do some halfway decent crowd control. And I think we brought this boss down in like maybe 5 minutes. I didn't time it, but it was a super simple fight. All in all, though, I'm loving this weapon. The Divine Vengeance, definitely making my top 3 list, possibly my #1 weapon in-game. What do you guys think about the Divine Vengeance? Is this something you're interested in? Is this what you're going to use? And if not, what weapon are you using? Let us know down in the chats. I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you all next time.